We're talking toxic masculinity and seeing past our privilege as men. Stay tuned.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yo, what up, AfterBuzz? It's your boy DJ Jesse J. Welcome to Talking TED Talks. We are joined in studio. Unfortunately, Yasmine couldn't be with us. She's making her coin, and I ain't never gonna stop nobody from making their coin. So she'll be back with us next week. But today's very special. We got an all-male panel, and I'm very excited. We got Nathan Harris in the building.
Hello, everyone.
Shawn Finnie.
Yeah, yo.
And Matthew Paetz.
Hello.
Yo, so, you know, Shawn was real late. I'm just going to keep it real. Shawn was late and whatever, so we're going to have...
Someone's got to be late.
He's a superstar, so, you know what I mean? We didn't have the red gummies or whatever. No, all right. So the TED Talk this week was called Why I'm Done Trying to Be Man Enough. It's 2017, a TED Women Conference, and Justin Baldoni was the speaker. Justin graduated from CSU, California State University, and he's most known for Raphael from Jane the Virgin. He also has this talk show called Man Enough Talk Show, which is an all-male dinner panel where they discuss a whole bunch of issues from the voices of men. This was actually the first TED Talk I ever really got into. I always thought TED Talks was technology and boring, and then I saw this one, and I was like, oh, all right, mental health, this is kind of cool.
Right.
And I just was like, I just would love to hear what a full panel of men would have to say about something like this. So I'm extremely happy he did this. His personality, the way he delivered it, I was so relatable to me. The one thing I really took away from it was he said, take a look at scripts that have been passed on throughout our lives. He said his first script was from his dad. He resented his dad when he was younger for making him soft. His dad wasn't traditionally masculine. He said it wasn't like we were out hunting or fighting. Instead, his dad taught him about sacrifice and providing. And it really hit home for me personally. That was my kind of takeaway, because this is exactly how I felt growing up. And, you know, for me, my dad, you know, it wasn't about sports. It wasn't about anything like that. It was about nature and learning and animals. And it was like, but when I see these guys at school, that's not what they're about, you know? And my dad really put that into me. So to hear it from somebody else really resonated with me. What did you guys kind of take away from that? And as an actor, talking about relating that with scripts and that we're taught how to act as a man.
I don't know. I think it's interesting because my father was in the military for 24 years. He was a first sergeant. So that already exudes, like, the question was, what's it like in your house? Is it like, you know, is it like really strict and really crazy? And I'm like, no, my father's not like that at all. Like, everybody knows my father to be, everybody talks to my father with their problems. You know what I'm saying? Everybody comes to my father with, you know, things that they're struggling with. But he's not a yeller. I've never even seen him upset or mad. These typical traditions. And then you add in military on top of that, right? So then when you think of military, you think of like big, buff, and crazy.
Too.
But like my father to this day texted me 2 days ago. He's like, hey, handsome. Like my father speaks to me and has always spoke to me as a person first. So, I don't know. I've grown up with more similar backgrounds where I didn't have to be hunting and playing sports.
What about you guys? Because I know you came from the country life.
Yeah, I grew up in a town of 700 in rural Indiana, and it was very much that quintessential Midwest thoroughbred. It was whiskey, guns, lifted trucks, like a man's man, as many would like to call it. And yeah, I mean, I grew up in the locker room playing sports, and it was very much, what I realized looking back on it now was a lot of the behaviors that men are taught are masculine. They're behaviors that are designed to impress other men. Right? And where you see, when we're youth, young, like that serves you very well. Those survival patterns are very effective as you grow up, but they don't translate well into adulthood. You know, because in adulthood, we're in, be it business relationships, romantic relationships, you know, any number of things. Our friendships change, right? You move, you change, college, whatever is in that person's life. So you have to learn how to connect and adopt in different ways. And we were speaking a little bit earlier before, like, you know, a lot of male culture is, oh, let me talk shit to you, and that's how I'm
That's how I bond with you.
That's how I bond with you.
Right.
And growing up, that's one thing, but if that's the only way you're taught how to communicate love and connection,
period.
How do you think it's going to go on a first date?
Yeah.
How do you think it's going to go in a marriage? How do you think that's going to go in fatherhood if your bonding is
to pick someone apart.
To pick someone
for
apart,
fun.
to aggression. No. It's in love. It's
Yeah,
in
no,
love.
but that's what I'm saying. But for fun,
Yeah.
like it's fun.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. It's,
Right.
And that's the common justification. So that's the thing that I speak about a lot of times. Like, even if a behavior is justifiable, that doesn't make it okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And I think that's something that's extremely important, because we can justify all day long talking shit. We can justify all day long our, our skewed vantage points and why we believe these things, and it's justifiable, absolutely, but that doesn't make it okay. So
I think to me there's a balance. I look at a lot of people, and my parents were celebrating their 40th anniversary next weekend.
Okay, parents.
That's what's up.
So I always say I grew up in love. But they never taught me the other side of it. I never knew families that didn't have that. Most of my friends, even if their parents were divorced, their parents always worked towards. So I grew up in this bubble of privilege of being able to be around great families. My family's Greek, so our entire block, my family, it was my aunt, my uncle, my cousins. We all lived right on that block. So,
On the block.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, for me to have gotten up and left that, and to see what a broken family, or that mentality of toxic masculinity and how it can raise certain people, and then how those people can affect me, I'm like, oh, get out of my bubble, stay away from my bubble, and then learning how to deal with them. Nathan, for you, what was that like growing up, as far as like, what was your relationship with your father?
Well, as you guys bring, because initially, I don't think that I had a negative relationship with my father. No, I know my brother did. There was a lot of times where my dad was calling him a sissy in certain situations, and there's things of that, like a lot growing on, like to the point where I think their relationship is still affected by it. Now that if I look back on things, so it wasn't like he was like, let's just be tough. It wasn't that. It wasn't like he didn't want us to show love. But now that I look back on things, the way I used to communicate, just like how you say if you only know how to communicate one way, when I would meet somebody new, like let's say we just met and I liked you and I really messed with you and I wanted to build a relationship, that's how I would communicate. I would find something to joke around with you about. But some people didn't receive that joke the same way. And so there would be points of times where it's like I would have to literally tell people, the more I joke around with you, the more I like you, so please accept that. But regardless if I'm telling you that or not, doesn't mean that I'm actually, they even care about that. So that's why, like, I have a term that I say all the time now, and I got I love you tatted on my wrist, because I realized I don't know how to properly show love to people, especially to my male counterparts. So it's like I have to remind myself I love you more than you know. That's the term, I love you more than you know, because it's like I know I'm not showing it, but I swear I got love for you right now. But that's all from the way I was raised, and I didn't see love.
I want to jump in real quick on you saying that. Like, I do agree. A lot of us aren't taught how to show love, but I would even like to take a step further back and say most of us aren't taught how to receive love.
That's
that.
Because we know how to say, like, yo, man, I love you, but how well is that received? Like, especially in like this toxic masculine culture, to say I love you to another man.
Oh, that's gay. I'm soft. You're
Yeah.
this. You're that.
Stop being blah blah blah, whatever, and they push you away, push you away. When in reality, that's all we crave as men, because we act like that's not a human thing.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like when you look at human beings, there's male and female, and like are you trying to be a better man, a better woman? Or are you trying to be a better human? Because that's the important part. Like, humans is what shows up everywhere, not just a man, not just a woman, but everything. Like, it needs to be a well-rounded, like everything else in life needs, like, you need to be a well-rounded soldier, you need to be a well-rounded artist, you need to be a well-rounded athlete. But in life, we're just supposed to be one thing. You're supposed to be just a man. You're supposed to be just a woman.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I was having this conversation the other day that nobody is one thing. I'm a son, I'm a brother, am I uncle? I'm an uncle. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like you're these things. Like, you're all of these things. You know what I mean? And this idea that like that one thing that you want to grow up and be. And then I think ultimately there's not enough conversation about just like how that then in turn deals with your relationships, your friendships, but your relationships, right? Because like whether you're a man and a man or a man and a woman or every other thing that I can't think of, LGBTQIA, and you enter in these partnerships where it's like you then dealing with love, or that idea of it, like you said, becomes even that much more difficult, because I need compassion from you, I need love from you, I need honesty and loyalty and all these kind of things that if I can't express, how do I then expect you to give that to me, right? And then those two people get together, they either raise or birth or adopt a child, and then that person goes out into the world, and then it's like a cycle all over again. And I'm like, looking at kind of like where these ideas of labels come from, and I think a lot of the ideas of labels, whatever it is, whatever the label is it's a label to classify you.
Yep.
And that classification then tells us who you are, and you can only live in this box because you are black, so you can't act white, or you're white, so you can't act black. You know what I mean? It's these things that hold us down. So if you're a man, you can't cry, you can't show emotion, you got to bottle it all up, you got to, and all of these old things that no longer pertain to where we are.
It's so funny because I grew up in a very immigrant mindset family. So my family, I didn't know how my dad and his father connected with each other until my grandfather passed away. And it was the first time I ever saw my dad cry. And my dad, until I was a senior in high school, would come wake me up every morning and kiss me on the cheek in bed. And I just, never, I liked it, but I didn't but then it would get to like, Dad, you don't got to do that. But now looking back, I'm like, I love that he did that. And when my grandfather passed away, I said to him, I was like, you never talk. He's like, why are you always calling your mother? You're always talking to your mom. I'm like, Mom talks to me. Yeah. You don't talk. You come home from work, you go up, you sleep, you eat, you sleep, and And when he broke down, he said to me, it's crazy you say that. He said, I look up to you because you can just go do these things. You can just talk to everybody and you can just voice how you feel. He was like, I always was jealous. You're like your grandfather. I always was jealous of my grandfather because he connected to everybody and I felt like he wasn't mine. And it got to a point where my grandfather said, I'm always yours. Like, these people are renting me. He said, but I belong to you. And that was, my dad said, that was the first time he realized he was being this portrayal of a man because he couldn't cry. He had to go to work. He had to do these things that he thought his grandfather, until his father broke down and said that to him. And what Justin came out to say, he said, I've been pretending to be strong and I'm tired of performing in real life. As an actor, he's performing and playing these parts. But then in real life, he's realizing I'm doing literally the same exact thing. And I'm hurting the people that I actually genuinely love. So for you guys, where was a moment where you felt, oh crap, I'm getting a little ahead of myself and, maybe I have a little too much, as he calls it, machismo?
I realized it when all my relationships start failing. Every single one. And like deep down inside of me, I'm like a hopeless romantic, right? Love movies, stuff like that. But the way I show affection is completely different than how a woman wants to really receive affection. But it was because my dad had never showed my mother that same affection. My dad was like, let me just make this money. Everybody's eating. Everything's good. But he never took her on dates. He never bought her flowers. I never seen those things. So now when I'm in relationships, unconsciously, again, I'm sitting there looking at her like, I love you, I'll do anything for you, but I'm not showing her, I'm not touching her, I'm not hugging her, I'm not taking her on dates, I'm not doing creative little things. So when I started realizing all these relationships were failing, that's when I'm like, look, you got to figure out yourself. And that's when I started realizing that I had to work on my own self, and I had to become more emotional, intelligent, and understand my faults and how I can get better at these things.
Shawn, was there ever a moment for you where you, so he talks about this trip where he wanted to talk to his guy friends and he felt like, well, if I open myself up and I share this with them, they're going to laugh at me. Has there been a time where you held on to something so long where then when you finally let it go, that you had made such a big deal out of it that you were like, oh shoot, and I actually opened up to this man and now I understand myself better?
I think all the time. I think those moments are happening every day, because I think that if you are doing the work and the work is really just working on yourself, you're constantly finding out and rediscovering things about yourself that you realize you haven't shared, or you've been hiding, or you've been holding back, or you've been whatever. So typically when I find things I'm afraid of, it makes me do it. So that's why I started using social to be able to kind of talk about things that we don't typically talk about, right? Eating disorders, depression. We don't talk about these things as men, but now we're seeing more than ever. If you go to your Explore page, every guy has a shirt off, every guy has a six-pack, everybody, but that was always a woman's issue, right? Where it's like, oh, she has the perfect body. So it's all of these unconscious things that are happening where men are now dealing with that idea and not able to talk about it. It's not cool if you talk about it. You're trying. Damn you if you're trying to lose weight and look good, because who's that for? That's feminine. But you don't look good, so what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And so I think that I'm constantly figuring out, as I'm discovering myself, different ways that I can articulate it and express. And I think that we all naturally suppress our feelings because we all want to be desired by our friends, looked up to by our father or our counterparts, desired by the women that we date. We all want to look like we're that guy. But the truth is, none of us are that guy. And so for me, I started to realize that there's a lot of vulnerability, a lot of power in vulnerability. And I realized I instantly feel more connected to people that can talk about the things that aren't comfortable. I feel like, oh my God, you're human too. And not like I want to take this because I want to use this against you, because you also have to be aware of those people. Some people are only taking those stuff to put in your file to then take out, make copies of and pass around the office. You know what I'm saying? And some people are really wanting to connect with you on a deeper level. So I'm at a place right now in my life where I'm only allowing certain people into my space that I can connect with, because there's going to be a day I need to call you and be like, bro, I'm not feeling good. Or Jesse, we've had conversations where I'm like, depression is setting in. I'm an artist. I'm a person who wants to do things, my career, my whatever, and none of it's in your control. And it's like, you're bottling all this stuff up in and you're not talking about it. And it's like, I can't have those friendships and call them friends.
And I'll give you this. Shawn is literally one of the first people that came into my life that I could have certain conversations with. And I was like, holy crap, like another man speaks like this? Honestly. And then, Matt, you came into my life, and that we've had deep conversations. And, Justin talks about diving straight into shame publicly and owning up to his vulnerability. We've talked about that. So kind of touch on that for you. What was your moment? Tell everyone what your moment was with realizing you were hiding that shame and owning it.
I mean, it was quite a bit. My actual moment when I learned the lesson of vulnerability, I still laugh about this, but if y'all have ever seen the movie 8 Mile, so
I love that movie.
I love it
that
too.
was a dope movie.
No, this is a great reference.
But this was the moment where it clicked for me, because I saw it in story, I saw it in action.
That's what art does.
Exactly, 100%. And so that the part in the movie, the climax of the movie, where Eminem's character is going against, I think his name is Papa Doc, if I remember correctly. And Eminem, it's the height battle. Like, this is the one that we've been waiting on all movie, crowd packed, all the nine. And then Eminem, like during the coin flip, takes the mic and says, "Let me go first." And all he does is rap about himself. All he does is take ownership for everything he knows his enemy is about to use against him. So when the mic now gets passed,
he has no juice.
He has nothing, and the crowd turned on him. Clowned him for being silent because he had nothing to use. And that was when it clicked. It was like, holy shit. When you own this stuff, when you truly own it, there's a difference between talking about it and owning it, right? There's layers to ownership. But when you own it, all of a sudden it can never come back against you. So even when one of those people does enter your circle that wants to abuse you or use, your details to their advantage, you're only going to make it so far because I'm not responding to this.
Right. And that's true. I always said, like, you can't use me against me.
Yeah,
you know what I'm
100%.
saying? You got to understand that sometimes when you are voicing those things, we're not talking about, there's nothing that comes, growth that comes from being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So
what Beyonce say? When you hurt me, you hurt yourself.
I mean, but it's true. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I've realized that, like, if you're going to be open about those things, like you talked about, it's about feeling uncomfortable. It's about feeling like, oh, I'm putting myself out there. It's about being willing to be judged by people who aren't even half of who you are anyway.
But
being
okay,
okay
is
with
it
that.
media
You know what
that
I mean?
tells us that? Because here's my thing. I've always been scared, right, to do it. But every situation, I have just been like, you know what, fuck it, and owned it and just had that conversation with another male. I've never had a situation where it was really taken negatively or went to a bad place. It's just what I've been programmed to think, oh, if I open up to him, he's not going to react. So that's why most of my friends have been female, because I've learned that they don't care. They'll openly talk about it, even if they know think they're wrong or whatever. And you don't see that openly with men. And to me, I'm just like, is this programming that we're being taught? There was another TED Talk, and they talk about the toxic Disney movies and how we grow up. Little girls are going to watch Cinderella, and you're going to watch Toy Story. You're going to play with army toys, and they're going to play with dolls. And you're going to like pink, and they're going to like blue. My favorite color is purple, but I didn't own my favorite color was purple until I got older because I was like, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. My favorite color is fucking purple. It's royal. It's not gay. It's not this. It's not that. But I was always associating because I look on TV and well, you never see men wearing purple or this or that. What do you guys, as far as programming?
I'll jump all over this conversation because oftentimes when you hear this term around a lot that we're talking about, which is toxic masculinity. I like to change the conversation from it being gender specific and it's toxic conditioning, right? Like we all have a responsibility regardless of gender. Like this is a toxic conditioning, and when you get to the root cause of it, the truth is there's a couple truths here. One, we as human beings, we are not logical creatures that have the ability to be emotional. We are emotional creatures with the ability to be logical. The problem is we try to outsmart emotions when emotions are the root of everything. The emotions are the tools we were given as human beings in order to design a life.
You literally come out of the womb with the emotion of crying.
So if I'm going to use a quick analogy, So a quick analogy, imagine that you have your carpet, you have a full tool belt. Like it's stacked. You have every tool you'd ever want. And someone says, go build a house. And you're like, cool. You learn how to use each tool. You could build a perfect house. But imagine at birth or like along your way, along your upbringing, someone says, well, I'm going to take the majority of these tools away, and I'm only going to leave you with a hammer and a ruler. But you still need to go build that house, i.e. a life. Tools being the emotions. We were talking about this earlier. Boys don't cry. Boys aren't allowed to be scared. You're taking tools out of our belt and asking us to go build a balanced life. So what happens is we're allowed to be excited and angry. That's what men are allowed to be socially. So you're telling me I get excitement and anger to build this house. So I have to get real creative with this ruler and with this hammer. Right. I got to figure out how to nail, screw windows with just these two tools. So we end up overusing emotions that aren't meant to be used for certain things. Like anger is used to build connection. It's contradiction, right? But if that's the tool you got, you're going to get real creative and figuring out how to build connection. Because if I yell at you and you respond, that means you're connected to me. So that tells me it's working in some way, although the long-term result isn't it. But the other part that I want to talk about too is we are also pack animals. Like humans to survive physically, we must remain in a pack. Our survival depends on it. So when it comes to social norms and our conditioning, we automatically, by the time we're 6, by the way, quick fact, between the ages of 0, by the time you're 6 years old, you've already decided up to 60% of what you believe to be true about yourself and be true about the world. Wow. So by the time you are 6 years old, you've already made decisions based on self-worth, like what you're allowed to desire, how you're allowed to be. So oftentimes when I'm coaching with somebody, I'll ask them, whether they're running business or in life, I ask, it's like, would you take business advice from a 6-year-old? Because you are. Would you take marriage advice from a 6-year-old? Because you are. Because it's your 6-year-old belief, conditioning that we're talking about, programming, that is running the show. So it's not, we were joking about this earlier too, like if you expect to update your cell phone every 2 months so it operates properly, what thinks this isn't allowed to be updated, but like once in a lifetime, like you're supposed to just operate from the programming you were given at the beginning, you will never outperform your conditioning.
Oh, if we had 20 minutes, I would talk about Charlize Theron right now. I won't go there.
Yeah, so I think it's extremely important to recognize that the survival patterns we develop as children in order to, thrive in that circumstance, they often don't carry over into thriving as adults. Survival doesn't equal fulfillment, joy, happiness, acceptance. Survival is survival, and that's what we are conditioned to do from birth. Yeah. No one ever teaches us, like, hey, you're good now. Now here are the tools to develop healthy connection. Here are the tools to develop, healthy relationships with sex, with money, with gender, with whatever. And
imagine if school was that.
Anyway, I could go on forever about this shit.
No, that's real.
I geek out. But yeah, I mean, it's programming is everything. Yeah. It's literally everything. We're all conditioned. But the beauty is, if you're conditioned, you can be reconditioned. The challenge is that requires choice.
What I've been learning is just like, it's two things that have just really been changing my life. As you do the work, and to be clear, like the work is just the work that you do on yourself to reprogram and figure out who you really are, not who you were told that you are. One thing is redefining redefining, I don't know, anything, masculinity, success, love, money, rich, because being rich isn't always about money. We see Robin Williams, we see Anthony Bourdain, we see all these people who are successful and who have money but not happy, and unlearning. And it's like what you have the ability to unlearn tells more about who you are than what you have learned. And so if you have the ability and the approach from a place of really wanting to learn, and humility, it takes humility to be like, yo, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, bro. But like, I need to fix this. My relationships aren't good. Like, I know I do love this person, but like, for whatever reason, I can't connect. Like, I need help, you know? And so for me, redefining things, there's a power in that. There's a power in being able to say, no, this is what this means for me. And there's a power in unlearning, because if you can unlearn, like you said about the conditioning, then you can then fill that cup back up with something that actually builds that house. And if you're not building that house, I ain't coming over. You know what I'm saying? Where are we going to sleep? If it rains, where are we going to be? Like, you know,
you learned about it with the 3 Little Pigs.
Yeah, it is windy.
Yeah, I feel like all you guys I've been learning so much from all you guys so far, but like I have this brand that I've been trying to push, right? And I'm not trying to promote all my love right now.
I'm not trying. It's you're doing.
I'm doing. You're right. I thank you, brother, for that, because I'm trying to work on speaking things properly.
I'm working on
it. Keep getting me right. But I started this thing called Operation Complete Human probably about 2 years ago, and initially it was just for myself, because when I got done playing football, I started realizing all these different things about myself. I wasn't building quality relationships. My mom called me one day, and I've always been that hard-working individual where I'm going to the NFL. If not, I'm going to find a way to start a business or do something to make $1 million. It's all about being successful by making money. And so my mom called me one time. She's like, you know what, son? Like, you're back from college and you're down the street, and I still feel like you're still at college. And so it hit me, and it was just like, dude, like this life thing, like what do you really want to be? Life, there's so many components in life that we must focus on, from making money and being financially secure, but giving back to your community, being emotionally aware, building quality relationships with your family members. Because it's like, what's the point of making $1 million, but at 33, you're not healthy, and you're not going to the gym, you're not taking care of what you're putting into your body, but now you're sick in a bed at 33 about to die. Or now your family, you're giving them millions of dollars, but they don't even have a connection with you, and they don't want to hang out with you. So I used to say it just for myself, like, Nate, you got to be complete, bro. Like, you're so focused on just being successful and making money that you're losing the true things that are really important here in life. And so that's the goal now, like, just to try to get people to think, like, let's get a lifestyle. Getting people to think.
Well, and I think it's interesting
to live a lifestyle. I'm glad that you.
No, it's interesting because I think it all boils down to, and going back to what you said, like about not male conditioning or female conditioning, but human conditioning, right? Where you strip everything away, and ultimately all you want really is love. You know what I'm saying? So like, whatever that situation is, you put successful, whatever. But we aspire to these things. You aspire to, whether it's success and whatever that means in your life, you aspire to fame, you aspire to these things because essentially and eventually you want to be adored, or you want to take care of the people you want to take care of. And it's not a negative thing. It's negative when you are using your platform and only your platform
for self,
for self, or to be validated by others who are then telling you who you are, but you're not doing the work. You know what I'm saying? But if you're in the NFL and you're now a big NFL player, but you're in that position and you can go back to your community, you go back, because our lifespans is whatever is. I can go in this conversation forever too, but like, it's about what you can create. We hear people talking about it's legacy. You know what I'm saying? And legacy isn't just about, if I had a grandfather who left me $1 million, I'd be like, okay, hey grandpa, that was cool. But if I didn't know you, if I didn't get to connect with you, your father taught you certain things. You know what I'm saying? And like taught you how, and the kiss on the cheek. You know what I mean? I had to tell my dad, like, you were pulling up to the school. I don't need you to kiss me on the cheek. You know what I'm saying? But now when I think about that, like whenever it's my parents' time, it's like, wow, they've taught me how to love. They've taught me service. They've taught me the ability to connect with people and how important that is. So it's like, but ultimately the things we aspire to is because of we want to be loved.
And it's funny because I used to get picked on that. Looking at it now that I'm older, it's like, y'all was jealous because you wasn't receiving that.
For real.
So then you try to make me feel bad. But I'm surrounded by love that you can't make me feel bad. I want to go to the conversation. We got to wrap this up. But he talks about, as men, we have to see past our privilege. And I want you to kind of take that, because before we started this, you said that was kind of a wake-up moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, like, because as I graduated college, I've just been reading and just trying to research knowledge. That's kind
researching knowledge.
I'm researching knowledge. And so
that's a challenge. I'm gonna put it right now.
Yeah, let's do
Remove try from your vocabulary and talk to me in 3 months.
Yeah.
All right, who
Because you're gonna show up different to everything you're saying. You will show up
I believe
differently
it.
to what that is
No, but
when
I'm-
you just remove that word. Say the same sentence, just remove that word.
Yeah, no, but I've recently I've learned that this the power of your words and what you're speaking into the universe. Like, so I'm just now learning those type of things, and so I do need those. Those things are unconsciously though. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying. That's unconscious, but like I'm just love.
It's unconscious, but it's very important.
It's very important.
And because when we're trying to move this, we haven't moved it. So when you're saying, when in your mind you're moving this, but you're not allowing yourself to connect to the fact that you just did that thing, you're somehow speaking from a place of doubt, somehow speaking from a place of it's somehow, maybe I can, and nobody, your life changes when you are bold enough to accept that you have the opportunity and you are valuable enough for it to change, and not when you're trying to do it.
Exactly.
And so I say that out of love to be like, I'm telling you, I'm also telling myself. You know what I'm saying? I would tell a stranger because I think it's important that if we're speaking from it at this point where we are right now, we're doing everything with intention. We showed up here with intention. Even if we were late, we showed up with intention. You know what I'm saying? But we showed up. You know what I mean?
Definitely. But like me, you know, I started realizing the race relationships in Los Angeles, and not Los Angeles, in America. And I grew up in Chino, California, suburban area, right? And then I ended up going to school at University of Montana. So my perspective is very broad because I was raised around a lot of Caucasian people. And so the way that they view me is like they have no racism. I didn't experience a lot of racism, but I see a lot of racism now as I'm back in Los Angeles, and I see the people who are in the inner cities and people in Montana who have never been to the inner cities, but they have opinions on the inner cities. So it's like you really don't know what's really going on or why these people are on welfare or why these people are struggling. But if I can get that information to you and explain to you why these people, I get it, right? So I used to always be mad, like, how do you guys not understand what some of these people are going through? And then I had a conversation with a woman who had these issues in the workforce. And so it hit me, and I said, like, I get mad when other people don't worry about black issues, but I've been sleeping blinded to the women who have that glass ceiling when it comes to the workforce that I'd never seen before. And it's not that I didn't care, I just didn't know. So it was very powerful to me. So I know women, they go through a lot, and I'd never really thought about that. So now when I look at people who don't care about my issues, it's like they got their own issues they got to worry about, you know?
Boom. I love you guys. We have to wrap this up. We're definitely going to have you guys back in studio to do this conversation. And I have another topic for us, but that's at a later date. Thank you guys. Where can everyone follow you?
Jesse.
Nathan.Harris_.
We're
on
changing
Instagram.
that, by the way.
Officially Shawn Finnie.
Matthew Paetz.
Boom. You guys can hit me up everywhere at DJ Jesse J. Also hit us up across all social media platforms at Talking TED Talks and AfterBuzz TV. Till next week, same time, same place. Peace.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.